Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jason Bent. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video discussing a really effective way to break down sheet goods and make sure that you get perfectly square cuts every time. And while I wasn't focusing so much in that video on the tools that I have, inevitably, the most common question that I got from that video were all things related to my assembly table setup. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing a deeper dive into the assembly tabletop specifically that I have, the accessories that I have for it, the way it all works, and just why it's so effective, and share with you some of my overall thoughts now that I've been operating with this for about a year now. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. In this video, I'm not going to be talking about the base of this assembly table. It's more going to focus on the top itself and the accessories that I use for my crosscut station in order to get such good results. If you want to find out more about the base and a general overview of the top, you can go and watch my video that I did during my shop build out series where I talked about the assembly table. The reason I'm not going to be talking about the base is because I'm actually going to be rebuilding the base. And once I start showing you very specific features about the top, I'll explain why. My assembly table is comprised of 3 MFTs side by side. One of the most common questions that I get is, why did you use 3 MFTs when they're so expensive when you could have just made your own? For me, the biggest thing was I already had 1 MFT and I really wanted the ability to use the side rails for other accessories, which I'll show you here in just a moment. Each one of the MFTs is just sitting on top of my assembly table surface. It does not move, it's very heavy, and they're all connected together using the MFT connectors, which are specifically designed to connect one MFT to another. And the closest thing that I can relate that to is when you're putting 2 tracks together and those have connectors, same exact principle, it's just they go in the rail system on the side of the MFT. The last thing about the MFTs side by side that I did differently is I actually turned the MFT. So the MFTs are vertical instead of horizontal. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted it to not be so long, because if I had 3 end to end, this would be really long, but not so wide. So by turning these, I not only have a very wide surface, but I have one that's plenty long enough to support any materials. And when I talk about the width, the thing that was so important to me for this setup was I wanted to have much greater crosscut capacity, and that's what we're going to get into. So now some additional features when moving to the side. So as you'll be able to tell, I have my tables perfectly flush to the end of the base. So what that allows is for me to put things on the end that overhang lower. A perfect example of that would be the Vaxis. Another example would be these clamps. I have these clamp racks from Rab Tools. They're just 3D printed clamp racks, but they hang down lower than the actual surface. So because this is flush to the end of my table, I have easy access around this if I needed to clamp something to the side using the extrusion that's provided on the MFT, and I wanted to clamp it vertically, nothing would be impeding that. So now what you're looking at is the front, and this is the side I spend the majority of my time, but just like the end, it is flush to the tabletop. This allows me to again be able to use the aluminum extrusion in the event that I wanted to use something vertically, but there's nothing inhibiting it. I have perfect access to anything, and I'll be able to keep boards 90 degrees. Now, this space right here that you see, because my base is 4 foot by 8 foot, and the MFTs are not quite 4 foot by 8 foot, this is why I will be rebuilding the base, because I want access to all 4 sides. That is one of the only downsides to this current setup. And by me rebuilding this entire thing and making some modifications to the base, it will give me full access to all 4 sides, and it will really change things for me on this table. Now, the next 2 things I'm going to show you are the key to this entire system. This is a pivoting track system, and this is made by Dashboard PWS. As you can see, it's loose right now because I'm actually going to walk you through exactly how you set this thing up to get it square, but this is what the entire system is based off of. And I think this is probably like a 3rd generation of this. He's been making improvements. I'll leave a link to his website down in the video description if you want to check it out. He's got a whole system, but this is the key component to my crosscut station. So that was the back side. This is the front side. So this is the mating piece. The track sits on this pin, and you can raise this up and down based on the thickness of your material. And then it just locks in place here with this knob. Now, some people might be saying, why didn't you just use the one that comes with the Festool MFT? And the reason is because it is not toolless, as where this is toolless. And where that really comes into play is in the event that I did need to take it off. It is very, very quick for me to do so. I can just slide it off of the rails like that. Before we get into the second part of what makes this entire system so beneficial is I'm gonna walk you through how these are actually set up. Okay, so currently the front and back bracket are loose, and we wanna keep them loose for a reason. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my rail, and this bar right here, if you loosen these bottom nuts, this raises up and allows you to slide the track right onto the rail. So it slides back and forth just like that, nice and easy. So I'm not going to tighten that down just yet. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the front, and I'm going to make sure that my pin is inside of the little catch that is underneath the track. I'm going to lower the back here down so it's perfectly flat on the table. Now, once I've got both of those attached, you'll see that I'm able to move this back and forth pretty freely. Now, the next part of the process is to utilize these arrows that you see right here to set everything up, right? So how are we going to do that? As you can see right here, this is my existing cut line, which we'll discuss here in a little while. I'm moving this just so I can get a visual representation of where it is, right? Now, obviously, you could set this up anywhere you want. But the way this works is I'm going to place in these bench dogs, and we'll just go one towards the top, one towards the bottom. I place that in there like that. I place this one in here like this. And now, let's move it away just to give you a better representation. So I can move this right now and it'd be cockeyed, right? But these are references. So I'm going to slide them up nice and tight against that. Once I've done that, I can then lock my front, making sure that I still have contact here, and then I can lock the back bracket right here. Now, that's as far as we're going to go for right now, but it is nice and tight. It's in place. The rail is referenced off of these, and as of right now, it's in a perfectly straight line. And now I can go ahead and remove these and put them back in the drawer and not need them again until I move this. All right, so now I can raise my rail straight up and down. Now we're going to talk about the next key component to this entire system, and that is the fence. So this fence right here is from Benchdogs UK, and the version that I have is the metric version, but they also carry a imperial version. The length of the one I have is 1450 millimeters. As you can see, it has a stop. They actually just came out with an all metal stop, which I just haven't put on here yet. This one has a support that actually goes directly in line with the cut line for your track. So this is cut exactly to the edge of your track. And then on the back side here, I have what's called fence dogs, also from Benchdogs UK. And as you can see, these fence dogs were designed specifically to be able to attach to this fence. And they can be adjusted very easily, loosening these knobs and sliding them left to right. The lower portion of the dog, as I'm sure you could guess, is going to go into one of the holes on the MFT. So let's go ahead and get this installed. Now, because I already have all of my cuts and everything marked, it's very easy for me to reference where this fence needs to go. I have my fence installed. The edge is right on that line. I'm able to move my stop very freely. So now what I want to do is actually get this thing set up like I was getting ready to make a cut. So let's just say I'm using 3/4 inch or 18 millimeter ply. I'm going to take this, I'm going to place it up against the fence, and the reason I'm doing this is because this is the thickness of my material, so it's going to make setting it up a lot easier. So as I drop down my track, you'll see that my track sits up because I previously had the back and the front all the way down. So now I'll be able to use this as my reference. So I'll start on the back side, loosen this one knob, and bring this up until it sits nice and flush on the material. Once that's good, I'm going to lock that down. Now I'm going to raise the front up to ensure that the pin is in the locating hole. And now I've got everything nice and steady. So the very next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this is 90. And the reason why that is important is because, one, you want to have 90-degree cuts, but sometimes when you set this up, when you're tightening things down, it might shift just a little bit, And when I have this wide of crosscut capacity, a very small error can mean a lot at longer distances. So since using this for about a year now, the way I like to check for square is using a big triangle. This is from TSO. It's part of their MTR 18 setup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this triangle. The reason I like the large triangle, gives you way more surface area and it's perfectly flat against the material, so you can butt right up against something. So I'm going to put the first side against the fence, and what I actually like to do is loosen the front. So the back is actually still. Do I necessarily need to do that? No, but this offers me perfect alignment every time. Now you might be wondering why I loosened the front, and I brought you in overhead just to show you. So if I slide this up, it's touching here, but obviously I've got a gap. So we know that that's not perfectly 90. But if I leave that front loose and I slide this over until I'm making perfect contact all the way down, now I know that I am 90. So I'm going to tighten the front and we're good to go. Now, I'm going to raise this up, okay? I raise the track up, it moves. You can see it moves a little side to side. Well, now I'm going to put it on the pin. It's on the pin. Now let's check it again. Flat up against the fence. Perfectly 90. Lift it up again. Move it one more time. Perfectly 90. Every single time. Okay, so it's good to go. We're ready to cut. Perfect 90. Now, some of you guys might be saying, well, that's great, but look how much time it took you to do that. Yeah, it took a little bit of time, a little bit of setup initially. So just to walk you through, I'm going to take all of it off. I'm going to take all of it off. We're going to set it back up again, and I'm going to show you that once it's set, you don't have to do anything, right? And before I talked about, I like it because I have really wide crosscut capacity. So just to give you an idea, if I wanted to, I could have over 40 inches of crosscut capacity, over 40 inches of crosscut capacity. I've got 55 inches of support to the left side of the cut. I've got 34.5 inches to the right side of the cut. And now that this is set, it's that way every single time, except the thing that I can adjust at this point is how wide I want my crosscut capacity to be. So let's say, for instance, I didn't want to reach all the way up here to make a crosscut because I'm only cross-cutting 12-inch pieces. Well, I can move the fence closer and it doesn't change anything with this. So let me go ahead and take this off now. I'm going to come to the back, loosen my knobs. And I can slide my track right off. We'll just set that right here for now. Go ahead and take out the fence, and we'll just set it there for now. Now to flip this the other way, I said that we can go from one width to another and still have that accuracy. So we'll go ahead and set up our fence real quick. Put my piece up there. Well, now we got to put our guide rail back on. Come to the back. Slide it on, make sure it's on the pin, which it is. Lock down our guide rail. My board, everything's good. I'm on the pin. Okay, I brought you in close again just so you can see. Flat up against the fence. Slide this over, no rock, perfectly 90 to the fence again. Now, I would like to address one of the more common questions that I get, and that is, why are you cutting into the table when you have the space to cut in between the tables? Even though this table is designed to be cut into, a lot of people just can't stand or fathom the idea of doing it, but that's what it's for, everyone. That's what these tops are for. So yes, I could do that, and you also could do that. Keep something in mind though. One of the things that prevents the tear out on the bottom of the board is the fact that it is sitting on a surface and it is stopping those fibers from peeling back. If you had it over the opening, that wouldn't be the case. The fibers would just freely be able to go. The other issue you'd run into is if you accidentally set the depth a little bit too deep, you could cut into the aluminum. But I mean, you could cut through this if you did the same thing. But that is why I do not have it in one of the gaps. I purposely have it on here because I don't care if it cuts into this on one line over and over and over again. I hope this video, for all of the people that asked me the questions, very specifically about what my setup is, I really hope this answered those questions. Now, to be clear, this is a very expensive setup. 3 MFTs alone is very expensive. But for me, it just does exactly what I need it to do, and the capabilities of this assembly table surpass every single assembly table I've ever used or built. And because this would be so expensive to replicate, is the reason why I never made plans for this. Because one, I didn't think they would be that popular, and two, it's a very, very costly expense to build something like this if you're using the MFTs. Now, if you were to build your own MFT setup, but just kind of adopt the fence and the pivoting track, then it's a whole nother conversation. But this setup specifically would run quite a bit of money. And I've said this in many other videos to include the last overview that I did of this. This is not my design. I wanted to put 3 MFTs side by side. I got on Festool Owners Group and Matthew Byington. You can follow on Instagram, and I'll link his page down below. I saw his setup like this, and I basically built mine and modified it based off his. So I always say that every time I talk about this because I don't want anybody to think that I created this amazing setup. I did not. I've just modified what somebody else already did to fit my needs. If there's anything that I did not cover in this video that you want to find out more about, please leave them down in the comments section below. And if you're interested in any of the products that I put on here, I will put links to those. I'm not affiliated with Dashboard. I'm not affiliated with Benchdogs. I will leave links to that stuff just so you guys can go quickly find it, see what the cost is. If you guys choose you want to order something like that, I'll leave the links down there. If you guys want to find out more about me and everything that I do, go over to BENTSWOODWORKING.com. Or if you want to listen to the podcast that I'm on called the Green Suiters Podcast, definitely go check that out on whatever podcast platform you use. So until next time, get out in the shop, try something new, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.